Welcome to the CFO Club podcast. I'm Yolandi Fourie. I'm the CFO head for our CFO Club, and we are proudly sponsored by CIBA, the Chartered Institute for Business Accountants. In the studio today, I've got a very exciting guest with me, Jordaan, VP of Finance, Africa, Middle East and Asia Pacific for Sage. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Yolandi. It's great to be here. Really value the opportunity and looking forward to having a good discussion with you.
Amazing. So Jordaan, I always start with a little bit of insight into my guest. So I would love to ask you this very question. What does the audience need to know about Jordaan as a person?
So maybe starting with my family. So I've got an amazing supporting wife, married for a couple of years, and I've got 3 children, 2 daughters and a boy. When I'm not working, I like adventure biking and just being in the outdoors. Professionally, I've always been in finance. That's my background, that's my foundation. But I've sort of like found my way into the technology sector, and that's where I grew my expertise. Previous company I worked for was in information security. Some very exciting things that I saw there. And from there, the move to Sage, where I've been now for close to 4 years. And really, it's my passion now. Can't really see myself leaving the technology space, but it's an exciting space to be in, especially with where the world is going and where it touches on finance.
And I mean, just on that, it's so important that we have this discussion because I think you see what happens across the world, as we know that you travel around. Can you tell us if South Africa is, also adopting all of these sort of software that we're going to talk about today? Are we sort of matching up with the rest of the world?
Yeah, we're actually ahead, I think, in many aspects. If we look at elements such as adoption of cloud, South Africa, in terms of the Sage picture, we're actually ahead. And that's really encouraging. I think the adoption of technology, we've always been good at. We can see it in our banking sector. We can see it across multiple industries in South Africa. So I think we're good, especially supported by, the level of education that we get. I'm talking finance specifically now. The governing bodies that support finance professionals. I don't think we need to stand back for anyone on the global stage.
I love to hear that. I'm sure our listeners will too. So let's talk a little bit about how do I actually become a CFO in terms of, we know the traditional route. Perhaps you can kind of give us what your route had been for someone listening and an aspiring CFO. How do I become one?
So that foundation is really important, I think. That's where the education piece comes in. And once that's solid, I think one needs to get that commercial acumen and focus. That's really what CFOs should be doing, right? Is focusing and guiding commercial and strategic decision-making within an organization. It used to be very much focused on the numbers, managing a finance team, crunching numbers, looking at what's gone on in the past. Nowadays, it's focused on interpreting information, providing insight, providing options and scenarios to the other business leaders to actually drive the business in the direction it should be going in.
And it's so great that you mentioned that because I can imagine in your world in software as a service, I would like to sort of chat a little bit more about what do you do with your CIO or CTO in your business and also for other businesses? Do you think there's a bit of a link between those two C-suites in the future?
Yeah, there's a massive link. I think if we talk about digital transformation in finance, it covers 5 elements. You've got people, processes, technology, data, and information. And that's quite a wide scope for just a CFO to deal with. Standing still, the first one, people. It's all about what I mentioned earlier. We're no longer number crunchers. We want to enable our finance teams to interpret the data, do the storytelling, sit around the table and actually guide the business. The data piece is equally important because we need the right data structures, access to the data quality. Otherwise, the analysis and the insights we're getting won't be accurate and we will probably not drive the correct decisions. So that partnership is really, really important. In larger organizations, It's about that collaboration on C-suite level. We've got experts in all of these various fields, and we need to trust each other and we need to collaborate towards the common business goals. In smaller organizations, what we're seeing is that the CFO in many instances wear all of those hats, right? And they're responsible for the data, the technology, and the finances. So I think it depends about that setup, but you need to cover all of those angles, with technology being the middle one, being the enabler, and giving you the foundation to build all of those other elements on top of.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as a CFO yourself, you have had to deal with technology, because for you, you are working in technology fields, but a lot of CFOs don't have that sort of expertise, and to have that CIO or CTO guiding them and holding their hand, I can imagine that is really important.
It is really important, and that's where I think cloud solutions are driving a lot of this transformation at speed. If we take an element such as security, right? Smaller companies don't have the capacity to either have an internal security or risk division, nor can they, appoint an outsourced vendor to deal with that for them. But on a cloud platform, you've got the peace of mind that specialists are dealing with the security elements of it on your behalf. And should a vulnerability be identified or anything like that, you won't even be notified or requested to actually run an update on your system. It'll be pushed down to all of the users on that platform. So it's making your life a lot easier, I think, with where software as a service has been going.
Really interesting. And both of us, really enjoy what software as a service can offer us. For those CFOs that don't know that much, what would your kind of advice be? Where do I start?
So you need to, I think, start with that vision for your team. It's across all 5 of those elements, right? It's the people, like we said, the data structures, it's the technology platform, but you need to have that vision of where you want to go. With the options that are currently out there, you need to ensure that you don't get left behind, right? Because if we think about a cloud platform, the data that goes into it, the benefits that customers are seeing from adopting these platforms, if you don't do it now and only start doing it in 5 years' time, you're going to be lagging in terms of the insights that you can actually get from your data. If you're not as savvy with technology, maybe in your existing role, I think it's important to partner with the right people, the right advisors, the right vendors. Read customer testimonials to see what's out there and how you can benefit from it. There are so many obvious benefits of what software as a service can provide. Mentioning a few of them, the security we touched on, the reduced infrastructure cost that you have, the insights that most of these technology platforms offer, integrations with other platforms out there, best of breed software in other areas, maybe in CRM or in point of sale or in retail or in inventory. You can actually, in this new SaaS world, put the right foundation in and make sure that you then get the necessary outside applications in support of your business specifically.
Yeah, I think digital transformation is quite a topic. Is there anything else you want to tell us about, that particular buzzword that we hear everywhere right now? We also hear things like, our systems need to modernize. Is there any other insight that you want to give from a Sage perspective?
So Sage is interesting because Sage has grown through acquisition globally over many years. And that's put us in a position where we're experiencing challenges ourselves. So we've got data across multiple systems, and it remains a challenge for us today. I have to be honest about that as well. Luckily, we've got dedicated finance innovation teams, system teams, tackling these challenges of ours one at a time. We've been focusing a lot on robotic process automation, especially on the finance side of things, trying to make those processes and the mundane tasks more efficient and automated. But we've still got a long road to go. What we're seeing from our customer side is the real benefits. Life and Brand is one of our customers who operate a lot of casual dining, well-known franchises like Old Time Italy and Tiger's Milk. And a specific mention from them was that they can now, across these disparate systems of theirs, they can have a single view giving them the insight which they've never had before, and that drives their decision making. So yeah, technology is the enabler. I don't want to say it fixes everything, and everyone has got challenges, but it's definitely where the world is headed and what we need to focus on as finance leaders.
I would really love to hear a bit more about some success stories that you can share with us.
So we're seeing an awful lot of benefits coming from customers who are adopting the cloud SaaS platforms. Insight being number one. I think the multi-dimensional accounting framework that's offered provides new insights which customers never had before. It's a new tool at their disposal to drive decision making. There are many product features which have their own benefits. Automated consolidations, as an example, is phenomenal. You know, one of the biggest challenges in finance teams are always deadlines around month end, and now we are reducing close times for these finance teams because we've got all of these automations. On top of that, you've got your finance team focusing on building workflows in the system themselves, building dashboards to provide the insight. They can sit around the table and actually say, we've got a couple of scenarios, we've got a couple of options, and that drives decision making. It's a lot better than the historical numbers and reporting on that, never looking forward. So there are many benefits that we're seeing from customers on that level.
Wonderful. And it kind of leads me into, you mentioned about building a dashboard as a CFO or a finance, someone in the finance team. Would you say that this is what the modern CFO or finance leader should sort of encompass as well? Yeah, what's your take on that modern CFO and what does that look like?
Great question, because the most dreaded question for a CFO is when you're sitting in a meeting and someone asks you, did our marketing spend go up or down since the last forecast? Did this number move sideways? What is our increase in sales compared to cost of sales? I'm saying those are dreaded questions because you can never know all of the numbers. So what the new offerings provide you as a finance leader is identifying the needs from all of the C-suite contributors, whether it be marketing, your CEO, your people department, giving them the dashboards, building it once, and then you can actually forget about it from a finance perspective because they can gather their own insights. It proves a lot more efficient than all of these functions having to go back and forth between finance to get the necessary data. And in the old way of providing the data, the moment you provided it, it was outdated, right? Whereas with a live dashboard, they've got access to live data at their disposal, specifically aligned to their purposes. And that's what I really think is making the difference for modern CFOs. We're acting as enablers, and we can be commercially driven rather than looking backwards.
I wanted to take you a little bit back with some of the questions that I had about a CFO for our viewers. What do you think is the common misconceptions about a CFO or a finance manager?
I think it's very difficult for us to lose that old, boring number crunching, sitting in the basement, just looking backwards, stigma that's linked to finance people. You know, the more you put yourself at the table as a trusted business advisor for the other areas of the business, the easier you can get rid of that stigma. I'm trying to, with my finance team as well, to have everyone very commercially focused. So I've got finance business partners who support the various areas of the business and an FP&A team. And that enables us to really, really be commercially focused, doing the storytelling, acting as a trusted business advisor, like I said. So that's where CFOs and finance teams should be going. And it's really exciting. It feels like we're contributing more.
Brilliant. Yeah, in a C-suite, I think we're seeing far more CFOs being involved in multiple operational decision-making as well. So it's really nice to see that I'm not going to find a CFO trying to crunch the numbers. It's quite a big role or choose to fill, but also for finance leaders. There's a white paper that I've recently read that just put out on your Fourie market pulse, some of observations that you've done there. And One of the observations that I wanted to chat to you a little bit about, and in terms of sort of, AI and automation, where is Sage sort of positioning themselves on, the cadence of their releases in terms of providing service to their users? And I think if I can expand, it would probably be, we're talking a little bit about on-premise versus cloud. There's a lot of CFOs that may not understand all of those things. And if they do, they don't know how to, where to start. So from a Sage perspective, I'm curious to know, do you have quite frequent cadences of releases? What are you doing for your customers?
I think COVID was a real accelerator for digital transformation. And if we talk about desktop versus cloud, we saw real practical examples, especially during the lockdown periods, where we had customers phoning in saying, I need to process a payroll, but I cannot go to the office and I cannot go and sit at my desk to log in onto the server and actually process this payroll. So it became real for a lot of people that you need to be able to access your software and you need to be able to perform your functions and duties from anywhere. So that was a big accelerator from desktop to cloud. Once you start looking at something like cloud, we've spoken about the benefits there. But if we need to touch on the feature releases and all of that, a product like Sage Intacct, we've got planned quarterly releases of updates. And it almost works like a Tesla. I've heard that your Teslas get their updates over the air in the morning. When you switch on your car, you see some new features. It works similar to that. I think the one difference, though, is that we communicate upfront what's going to become available in the upcoming feature releases. Obviously, when we run into something like a security issue, we can push that through immediately. But customers really enjoy the fact that they are getting these new features for no additional cost, right? It's we're doing things in better ways. As we're getting customer feedback, we can build it in to our products and actually give customers back some of the benefits. AI is playing a massive role. The best example for me on Sage Intacct again is AI informing timesheets in services organizations. So me coming from an auditing background, dreaded doing timesheets, right? Because you've got all of this work to do and now you need to go and think and remember what you did on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Once you're compiling your timesheet and you're always overdue with it. So what the AI does in Intacct for organizations like that is it proposes timesheet entries for you based on your Outlook calendar and emails that you've sent. So it's really, really making things a lot easier for organizations out there.
That is very helpful. I wanted to also ask you, in terms of a CFO, we speak a lot about what does a CFO do, what do they have to do, what are the things a CFO should not get involved with?
Tough question. There's always too much to do, right? And I think it's very hard for us to prioritize when so much is going on. I don't think we should be getting involved in all areas of the business where we've got other C-suite executives taking responsibility for it. And the finance responsibilities are very often blurred, right? Because you can attach a number to basically anything in a business. So it's really hard to make that distinguishing factor between what you need to get involved in and what not. Prioritization, I think, is very important. So I would say try and stay out of what other people can do and focus on your responsibilities.
It's almost like, great leaders, as we all know, they sort of influence what you should be doing, but then they trust you and they get out of your way. So it comes back to planning, like you mentioned, also, and prioritizing as well. So I really enjoy how you have packaged it for us as well. I try and ask all my guests a very hard question. So, well, let's say I'm not trying to give you a hard question, Jordaan, but I really do want your sort of take on this. Someone that travels around the world in a global organization, you do see, and you mentioned earlier on, that we're quite ahead with technology. Where do you feel someone in your role could help improve our own country's GDP? And I'm saying it, GDP is numbers, but also make of it as you want. How do we do as human beings, but in your role in a company, What is it that a CFO or a finance leader or a finance team can do for the betterment of our country?
I think it's a great question. There's so much negativity going around these days, I think, in terms of energy challenges that we have, service delivery challenges that we have. Tough economic times, interest rates are going up, inflation is up. I think what we need to do is to remain optimistic and to find those positive elements. And I'm talking about day-to-day things, celebrating a customer's success, celebrating a win for your own company, trying to be positive about what we can be, I think can make an awful lot of change. I have to link to that we need to focus on integrity as well. At Sage, we've got a saying that we need to be doing the right thing. And that's paramount for me, especially for finance professionals. We've come also now from a lot of corporate scandals in South Africa especially, where the finance profession has taken some hits in terms of values and integrity. And I really think that's core to society for us to be the guardians where we need to be, make sure that we make decisions based on the right integrity and values within our organizations. And that will, over the long term, I think, change things around for us as a country as well.
Jordaan, it's been such a pleasure to have you in the studio. I have to have one last question before I let you go. What is that one thing, if you have to look back, the advice that you would give to your younger self?
I think it would be to not be so hard on myself. That's on the personal side of things. I think that striving for perfection sometimes can be a barrier for us. I have to link that back to the main topic of today as well, which is digital transformation. And I think if I could go back in time, I would invest more in technical and data skills. For the finance teams that we see these days, there's a massive shift. And finance professionals are no longer just professionals and experts in the finance elements, but in the data aspects as well. So to make that a bit more tangible, I think programming skills, data skills, that would be a bigger focus for me if I could go back in time.
I think we would all, wouldn't we? Such a pleasure to have you in studio. Thank you so much for coming to share with us from your heart. And I can see that you're a heart-led leader as well. You were always making sure that you wanted to talk about the teams that you lead as well. And I think I wanted to commend you on that. So thank you for sharing with us also what you're doing and that you're bringing better skills and better technologies to uplift our CFOs and finance leaders in our country.
Thank you, Yolandi. It's been a pleasure talking to you today, and I hope there's some value for the listeners.